Okay, hello everybody. As you can see by the frame there, this is going to be my version of a installation video on how to install a complete in-dash Sirius satellite radio for your Toyota Prius, shown here. So, basically, I'm going to go through a couple of the components that you're going to need. First thing you're going to need is the Toyota Lexus Scion vehicle interface for the Sirius satellite radio. Basically, what this is this SIR-TOY1 or SIR-TOY1. This is going to be your tuner for the Toyota vehicles. The next thing you're going to need is the Sirius Connect vehicle tuner, and this is your standard SCC1 module. This is basically the brain behind Sirius, and this is how your vehicle will interact with Sirius. So these are vehicle specific. I have this same SCC1 in my Honda Ridgeline, so this I know is pretty universal. So in the SIR-TOY1 package, you're going to get a little mounting bracket shown here. It's going to have some instructions. It's going to come with the SIR-TOY1 module. It's going to come with a harness, basically, that's going to connect to your vehicle's unit, which is going to be right there. So, yep, you guessed it, I got to take apart that whole dash and get behind that radio and start plugging in that harness. So, it's also going to get your power source from here. In the SCC1 kit, which is here, it's going to come with your standard antenna, which is a magnetic. This is going to mount to your roof or your hood, preferably your roof, and you're going to run the wire. Somehow get that behind the dash, which I'll show you. Here's the interface cable that's going to interface between the SCC1 unit and the SIR-TOY1 unit, which is there. So I'll kind of go over all these different components here as I kind of install this. So I'm going to splice a bunch of videos together here, but this is kind of the general overview of the components before you start. Okay, first thing you want to do when taking this dash apart for the Prius, I haven't pre-loosened anything yet, so first thing we want to do, make sure you have a nice clean working space. Make sure there's no crap anywhere, make sure there's nothing laying around, make sure everything is clean, because what you want to do is you want to really pay attention to how you take this apart. Now, if you look at this, just glancing at it, you don't see any screws, so with that in mind, you have to start thinking that things are put together by the clips. Things need to come off in a certain order in order for you to get to what you're looking for. So the first thing you want to start looking at is toward the bottom of the car. We have a little, I guess I couldn't really call it a transmission hump cover, but that's kind of what it simulates down here. This apparatus, these plastic apparatus down here are going to be the first thing that need to come off, because that's what's going to give us access to take the AC louvers off. And I'm going to go ahead and put my flash on so you can just kind of see what I'm talking about. Got some panels down here. That's where your brake pedal is, your gas pedal. There's your transmission hump cover, for lack of a better term, cigarette lighter, etc. So we're going to go ahead and take these first pieces off. So I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to kind of go through the first phase of it, and then I'll show you how they come off. Okay. The first thing to snap loose is this hump cover that we just talked about. Now, there's no screws at all on this except for a little tab. If you look down here, lower right corner, near the cigarette lighter, you're going to get a little pin. It's like a plastic clip that needs to come out of this hole. So once you pop that out, all you're going to do is gently pry up on this side and this side, straight out. Don't bend it upward, just pull it straight out. It's got these clips, and it's going to pop loose like that. You're going to have a cigarette lighter connect that's right here. This you want to go ahead and take out, and I'll go ahead and illustrate that in the next video. I want to use two hands when working with anything related to 12-volt power, because you don't want to short circuit anything on this car. It's very important. So that's your first step, is popping that loose. And I recommend while you're back there, go ahead and clean it up. Get all that dirt and debris out of there. Okay, the next step is going to be open up both glove boxes. You want to take out this passenger side vent. This entire unit comes out as a whole. And the way these are held in is not by screws, but by clips. So you want to go ahead and, let me throw the light on here. Okay, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and get up underneath this, and I've already popped it loose to show you, but all I did was pry straight up, and this whole thing's going to want to pop off like that. Very careful, and kind of just set it over there on the seat. Don't mess with too much stuff. So that's going to go ahead and expose your passenger side air vent. And you got a lot of electronics in here, so I can't stress enough to be very careful. Don't touch any of this stuff. Just take the plastics apart in the procedure that I show you. That's going to be your next step. Okay, next step is to come over here to the driver's side left vent, the one closest to the door. Same thing, you're going to pull up on the edge. It's going to release this vent. You're going to very gently pull straight out, and there she is. And I can't stress enough to be careful with these electronics, and while you're in there, clean your air vents. Get all that crap out of there and don't be breathing it in. I also recommend cleaning in the back side of these too. Clean your directors out, clean all that stuff out, and put these back somewhere that they're not going to get scratched or banged up, because you don't want to scratch up your dash. Okay. Once that's out of the way, you want to kind of look at the anatomy down here. There's a screw. I'm going to find it for you here. Right there. Right above the hood latch. Screw looks like this. Get it in frame here. Right there. Pop that screw out. That's going to take this whole lower compartment out, the entire thing. The painted piece and the gray piece are the same piece. It's just painted. This is not two units that you have to worry about separating here. So if we look at this as a whole here, the key fob, or where you put your key fob, everything is all part of one piece. So gently from the bottom, you're going to pull up on it, and it's going to release. I'm going to go ahead and get this released with two hands, and then I'll take a next video. Here is your next step. Now looking at this, you have one more screw. It's right here. So looking at it from here, here's your vent, driver's side vent, come down, right there. Screw is a small screw, Phillips head. That comes out first. Once you pull this out, this lower unit, it separates right here. There's your dimmer. It separates right here, comes across, separates right here. You're going to pry this from the dash straight out. So we're going to do a lightly pry and another, just put pressure with your thumb. Going to pop right out. Your whole lower compartment's now going to want to come down. Okay. Now, don't just pull this away. Remember, there's electronics attached to this. There's your ignition system right there that's attached. Over here is your dimmer. Do not yank this out thinking that you're going to pull the plastic away. You want to disconnect your dimmer switch so you don't let the pressure of this hang down and pull on the dimmer switch wires. That's the first thing you want to do. Next thing you want to do is lightly support this. I don't recommend disconnecting your key switch. The next step is going to be getting the power button shield off. The reason why you have to start over here and work your way toward the center is because this air vent hides the screws. So you have to get this air vent out, and the only way to get the air vent out is to work over here because these pieces overlap the gray piece. So the next thing you want to do, you want to just lightly pry up right here on this painted plastic and put some pressure with your thumb, and you want to pop that up. That's one clip. Over here, same thing. Pry and pop that up. It's going to want to lift this entire unit up. Right here. See, that's loose? Right there and right there. So once you separate that, now you can get this AC vent off. See? So let me go to the next step. Here we are. All I did was lift this cover up out of the way. Remember, your power button here is attached, so don't go ripping wires or don't go ripping panels apart just because they came loose. All I did was gently rest this up on top of the dashboard. That exposes a lot of stuff behind the dash. I definitely cannot stress enough to not touch any of those wires and do not fiddle with anything back there. It's all very important electronics. Don't touch any of it. All your goal here is to just get the plastic pieces out of the way. Your next step here is to get this AC vent out of the way. This is the AC vent to the right of the steering wheel, the one next to the navigation screen. This comes off the same way the other ones did, but I have to stress to you, be careful because the plastic isn't as reinforced as the other ones are. So from the bottom here, you want to gently pry up, and you'll see that the shifter knob does not have to come off. Don't take it off. What you want to do is you're getting this plastic loose from the bottom, then you're going to come back here where you kind of see these two tabs, put your fingers here and pull forward, and that's going to want to come off. So remember, you still have electronics here, so you can't just pull this piece off. What your goal is to do is get this out of the way. So let's go ahead and take that step now. Okay, once you guys get to this step, this is going to be kind of a pain in the ass step, because you want to try to remove this out of the way so you can get to these bolts, but the problem lies in that you can't get this out of the way without unplugging this park switch. Now, at first glance, your initial reaction is going to be to get your hands behind there and start pulling on that connector, and I advise against it. I'm going to show you a little trick. There's, on each side of this parking switch, there's a tab. There's one over here and there's one over here. I'm going to try to do this with the camera in my hand, but you want to go ahead and take your fingers on both sides, and you're going to lightly push on these tabs. Let me kind of set the camera down here while I do it. I'm going to try to get it in frame. I don't know if I can, but let's try. You're going to push on those tabs, and you're going to push the switch through toward you. Bingo, like that. Okay, now let's look at this switch. We want to unplug it. This is the connector for the plug. Okay, this is the actual switch. This little tab, I don't know if you can see it, but that little tab right there is what has to be pushed downward in order to unconnect this. So let's go ahead and use your thumb, push the tab. I'm trying to do this here. Bingo. That's what takes the switch out. Now this is another very important part. I couldn't even imagine how much the switch cost at Toyota, but I'm sure it's pretty expensive. This is what puts your car in park, so definitely take care of this. Right now I'm going to put mine in my glove box. This, remember that anything that you unplug, remember you have to plug this stuff back in. I know it sounds ridiculous to even say that, but when I got this car, noticed the dash lights didn't work in the car. Well, whatever Mickey Mouse mechanic had worked on it before me decided that he was going to forget to plug in the dimmer switch. And after sitting here for about an hour trying to figure out what was wrong with the car, obviously, bingo, that was unplugged. So remember to plug your components back in when you're putting your plastics back in. Now once that's taken out or unplugged, this will slide right off. Another air vent that I recommend cleaning, and then that's going to expose where you need to be, right there. Okay, the next step to do here is to take off the navigation screen. And the reason why you need to take the navigation screen off is because obviously this radio nests underneath the navigation plastics. So the navigation would have to come off first to get to here. And if we look at this here, you have a nut, or a bolt here, and you're going to have a bolt on the other side. So what you want to do is take those loose, which I'm going to do right now, and then we're going to pull the navigation screen out. Okay, once those two screws are out, left and right side, here's what they look like right here. These. It takes a 10mm socket to get them out, so get your 10mm ready. Once those are out, it's going to feel like this thing still doesn't want to budge. Again, held in with clips. The trick to popping all these clips loose without breaking them is to pull straight out, straight toward you. And you want to give it equal pressure on each side. So as you pull here with the same pressure. Okay, once you've taken the navigation screen loose, what you want to do not unplug any wires behind the navigation screen. You're going to see that there's a lot of electronics going into the back of it. Don't unplug anything unless you're going and you're doing a PHEV installation, or you're installing CanView or something like that, where you would actually need to unplug and plug in stuff right now. So leave this alone. What you want to do is you want to get to the back of your radio. So you're going to look at the radio here. You're going to see that it's held in by some screws on each side. I'm going to go ahead and get to the next step here, and then I'm going to video it. Okay. Your next step here is going to be taking these big fat Phillips head bolts out of here. This is going to be your major bolts that have your radio bolted into the car. So with a big Phillips head, you're going to loosen this one here, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to loosen this one here. You can also use your 10mm, but I decided to run with a big Phillips here. Okay. Once you've removed those two big bolts with your big Phillips head screwdriver or your 10mm, you're not done. The next thing you want to look at here is on the front of this radio, on the right side and the left side. I'm going to kind of show it here. Let me get the little screw that comes out. You have a machine small little machine screw that fits into the side of the radio plastic. I don't know if you can see that great, but these screws I'm going to go ahead and take out. So let's do those now. Okay, now that those two screws are removed, what we want to do is we want to look at the rest of this radio. This part here is the actual radio. This little door, this little compartment down here is not. So the next step is to get this panel off of here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how to do that now. Okay, to get this bottom piece off, it's not... Okay, I've seen a couple of videos out there where they just say to pop that off, but no, false. You want to look for two gold screws first, okay? You're going to have a gold screw over here. You got all these electronics over here. Be careful of those. There's a little gold screw there, and I've already taken the one out over here. Right below your shift knob, come down, right there. That screw's going to come out. Once these screws are out, I'm going to pop this out here. Set that up there. Once these screws are out, it's kind of hard to get your fingers back here, but you got your glossy part here, your clear plastic, down below here. You want to get your fingers down here, and you're going to gently pry forward again, like I showed you on all the other ones. Bingo. And the little door opens up. Once that's loose, equal pressure on each side, we'll take that bottom compartment off, thus allowing you to see the last two big Phillips head bolts that you need to remove. One here and one here. So go ahead and take this cover and make sure you put it in a safe spot, because the last thing you want to do is scratch that clear plastic and it's going to make your entire dash look like shit. So let's cover that up, and I'm going to put this in a safe location. Then we're going to take those bottom screws out there. Okay, I've removed that screw, and here's the other one that comes out right here. These were pretty tight. I was going to use the Phillips head. These were actually too tight, so I used the 10mm. So once those are out, now your four main screws to get this radio unit are out, your top ones and your bottom ones. And again, the trick to pulling all these plastics apart is to pull this straight forward. So what you're going to do is put your big mitt on here and just pull straight out, but don't pull this plastic here. You want to get a good grip on the actual metal up here and down here, and you want to pull straight out, and that radio is going to pop. Done. So now once that's popped out, don't pull too hard, because remember, you got a whole slew of wires back here. So let's go to the next step. Okay guys, you've now successfully dismantled your Toyota Prius and gotten your radio out of the compartment. This now gives you access to do everything you're going to need to do to install your Sirius satellite radio. So before you even touch those components that are in the box, you want to get to this phase first. And if you need to take a break, or you need to kind of jot down what pieces you're taking off and label your bolts and everything else, I highly recommend doing so, because the reverse order is a little more than your average vehicle of putting these things back together, so you definitely don't want to get confused. So let's kind of do an overview here of how we got here. I'm going to kind of pan back the camera, and we're going to see all of our components. And right now it looks like a big mess. You're probably going, damn, my brand new Prius is really looking like shit right now, and it's kind of scary looking, but don't worry, it all goes back together nicely. So here we are at a stopping point. Now what we're going to talk about next is the actual Sirius radio installation, which I'm going to do in the next clip, but this is kind of an overview, so if you have to use this video as a reference, by all means do so. Don't take everything that I say as gospel, though. I am just a DIY guy. But this should get you to this phase. We are at the bench, and we're going to be looking at these components here, the SCC1 and this SIR-TOY1. If we look at the instructions here, it's pretty clear. It shows the SIR-TOY1 going to the SCC1, and then a connection going to the back of the factory radio. Nothing actually plugging into the navigation unit. That's why I said don't worry about the navigation. It's pretty simple. The cable that you saw rolled up in the beginning of the video is here. It has two ends on it. You're only going to use one of the ends, and the reason why I say that here, it says, if I can zoom in, this here connects to the rear of the radio, This connects to the factory XM satellite harness if applicable. My model does not have a factory XM harness, so I'm not going to use that plug. So looking at it here, you have your harness here with one side. The one side is going to go into the back of the SIR-TOY1. The other side here is going to go to the back of the car. This is going to go back to the back of the OEM radio. The other jumper wire you have here looks like a keyboard wire you would have for your computer. One part goes into the SC output, other part goes to the SC input. So this as a whole is your module. This is what's going to power your radio. The only other missing component that you're going to plug in, and I'm going to save that till once this is in the car, is the actual antenna. The antenna is going to plug in the back of the SCC1 tuner. Okay? So take a look at that. That's what you're going to use, and you're going to bring that into your mangled mess of a dashboard. Okay, you are now ready to test the satellite feature. This may be a step that some people say you don't need to do. This may be a step that people say, you know, is, I don't know. I just know a couple of guys that would say that this part is kind of, you know, not needed. But this is going to be the step that saves your ass once you put everything back together and you turn everything on and nothing works. So what I'm going to do is show you how to connect this Sirius system into the actual factory radio so you can see it on your screen. So the first thing you want to do is, from the bench, all I did was take my unit in here and I laid it down here on the floor. I took my cable, that right here, that one side, remember you had the two sides connected to that? I took my cable and I ran it over to the radio, and it's kind of buried here. Let me show you. Here we go. Okay, I took my cable here, and if we follow it, here it is. Here's the one side that was supposed to connect to the factory radio that I don't have, so this is going to stay untouched, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little tape over the top of this so nothing can get into those contacts. The other double-sided end, yep, you guessed it, bingo, plugs right into the back of the radio. Now, when you first pull the radio out, you can probably notice from my video that this receptacle was open. I simply plugged this in. The reason why I don't have this unplugged and I'm not demoing it is because this fits very tightly. So once you plug it in, I advise not to keep unplugging it and plugging it back in. Obviously, I'm going to have to unplug it to route it around the back of these plastics, but for demonstration purposes, that's where it goes. So once that's plugged in, I re-plug in my parking button. We want to make sure that's plugged in. We don't want any malfunctions happening. This car starts driving crazy and everything else. So I highly recommend plugging your park button back in. I also recommend setting your parking brake. This way, if anything does happen and the shit hits the fan, you're not going to go rolling into your garage or rolling into somebody or killing somebody. So safety first. Next thing you're going to do, have your key fob in the vehicle. Push the power button once. Okay? I've already kind of just placed this navigation head back in here so we can look at some of the settings here. So it says audio off. So I'm going to kind of reach down here and hit the power button. Audio is going to come on. It's going to go to AM. What you want to do is you want to toggle your mode button on your steering wheel to see the Sirius satellite radio. Now obviously we don't have the radio activated. We don't have a antenna attached to it yet, so you're not going to hear anything, but you want to make sure that the interface is actually working with your navigation screen. So let's look over here. I'm going to push this mode button and let's watch what this does. FM1, FM2, AM, FM1, FM2, AM, and it's not working. So this is exactly why I say not to go and plug in and connect everything back behind the dash without testing things. So let's try to troubleshoot here and see what's going on. First, we're going to check our connections here. Behind here, we're going to go ahead and look at our Sirius system down here and make sure all of our connections are tight. That's tight. I think I just heard a click on that one. Tight. Bingo. So, what we got was a loose connection. Let's go over to audio. Now you can see satellite 1. Okay? This is going to be your proof that your installation of all your components is working correctly. When this says satellite 1, and you can see your stations here, channel 184, which is your default, 184, 184 all the way across the board, because nothing has been activated yet and we have no presets, so it's going to be all the same. What happens when we hit mode again? Goes to satellite 2, your second round of presets. So at this stage in the game, you know that your modules are working correctly, your SIR-TOY1's working correctly, your SCC1's working correctly, and your connections are working right. Now it's safe to go ahead and find permanent locations for your 2 modules, make your wiring nice and tight, don't let anything get pinched upon setup of the wires, and then you're going to be ready for reassembly. And then you're going to be ready for activation, and then finally enjoying your Sirius radio. Okay, here we are in the next phase of the game. That is routing the patch wire that's going to go from your modules around the back of the dash unit. You need to find a mounting position for the 2 modules that's not going to be in the way of these plastics. As you can see, that everything is pretty tight, so when things start going back together, there's not going to be a lot of room for those 2 modules to sit, and I really don't want them close to all the onboard electronics that are in the vehicle. So here I have the glove box removed, which I'll kind of go over as I reinstall it on how to remove it. But what I did was I mounted these 2 modules in the glove box, and I'll show you kind of how I did that here. They're going to go in here. And right now they're held in with 2 self-tapping screws, but basically the Prius has a nice little hidden slot down there at the bottom of the glove box to put things. So when this is all put back together, it's going to kind of sit like this. And I'll tuck the wires down nice and close here. That's that data wire between the 2 units. But this will allow a nice clean fit of the 2 modules. And you'll be able to have access to them if you ever need to remove them. If you sell the vehicle, you won't have to get rid of $200 in modules. You want to make sure you mount the SIR-TOY1 pretty low, because you want to make sure this data cable is going to clear the swing hinge difference at the top of the glove box. So make sure that you pay attention to that. So I'm going to kind of go through the next steps here. Okay guys, your next step is going to be to start reinstalling all these pieces here. Getting ready for antenna routing. Since my modules are in the glove box, the only place that I have to run the antenna for the Sirius radio is to the glove box. So I can put together all this mess and get it out of the way of the car. So first step is to install the radio. Next you're going to install the lower clip and then the navigation unit. Okay, your reassembly procedure should be going well. Remember, you did your radio first, you did your top 2 screws and your bottom 2 screws. Then you wanted to go ahead and tighten in or place your little tray piece that I told you to be careful of not to scratch. That just simply clips in. You reattach your gold screws here at the bottom, and you want to go ahead and slide your navigation unit in. You want to take care of your screws on the right and left sides. Those are the ones without the Phillips heads. And then remember, we took out these little small retaining screws here. We're going to go ahead and place those in next. Okay, next you want to install your driver's hand side right air vent, and remember we plugged in the park button. We're going to go ahead and unplug that first, and now we're going to install the right hand side driver air vent. So, trying to keep this in frame here, you start to slide it in nice and gentle, careful not to scratch or pinch anything, and you want to find that wire down here for the park, and you want to come in and you want to get it ready to fish through the front of where the button is actually going to be. But first you want to kind of position this and get it around the turn signal, because this is kind of a pain in the neck, and just kind of get it to where it's going to start to slide in. Fish that through, and you're going to pop it right in nice and easy here once you line it all up. And take your time. This is not a race. Okay, that fits nice and snug. Down here seems like it's going to fit nice. So let me set the camera down and I'm going to pop this in. Okay, we're nice and snug. We wanted to make sure our top clip up here clipped in nice, and our bottom clips down here. Got a couple on the side here that you want to make sure are nice and tight. Next thing to do is get our button here, and we're going to install this. Just clicks in, and this you're gently going to pop back into the slot. Bingo. Now your park is connected. Okay, the next thing we want to do, once we've installed this vent, is to put the power button top cover thing back on here. And this was just clips, remember. So what we want to do is we want to line this up nicely so that clip goes in there like that. Everything looks good down here. And we're going to gently push that back in. And that's going to snap back into place very nicely. Nice. Okay, once your lower cover is installed and your 2 screws are put back into the bottom, you're ready to finally install this driver's side air conditioning vent. Make sure your clips at the top are done first. Follow it down. Got some clips down here on the side you want to make sure are aligned. Bingo. That one goes back in nice. So now, you got you some nice left side dash all put back together nicely. Very cool. Now, let's move over here to the bottom, and the glove box we're going to reinstall. Finally that vent, and we're going to be ready for some antenna installation. To reinstall the glove box here, I'm holding the glove box in my hand. You got 2 little hinges right there. These are little plastic clipped hinges. Those rest right there at the base. You can kind of see where I'm moving it and where it's staying still. This comes up. You have this hydraulic piece that needs to be reconnected. So let's do that now. Okay, our dash is installed, or our glove box is installed. We just basically pushed in here to get these pins to sit behind here as a retaining stop. Go ahead and close that glove box. And now you have upper and lower glove boxes. So the only thing left you need to reinstall is that vent, which we're going to do now, and then your bottom cover. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, be careful not to scratch any plastic here. You're going to push this in with your angling at the top first, because that's the first clip that needs to go in. Top one in first, followed by the bottom. Let's look down here and see where we're working. Top clips in first, followed by the bottom clip. Bingo. This we need to still work on. This latch isn't latching properly, but we'll get that. Everything should open and close nicely. And your dash should be coming together. Very sweet. Okay, let's get this sucker on next. I'm actually going to get a rag there and wipe that down. This goes in the same way it came out. Just going to pop right back in. So let's line up the clips. We got one over here. And we got one over here that you probably can't see. Up there. Don't stick your finger in the cigarette lighter. It sits up there like that. Clip that in. I'm going to set the phone down here so I can use 2 hands. Nice. Right back in. Very cool. We're even over here. We're even over here. Ready to put in that little pin on the side. It's located here. Can't really see. There we go. Done. Okie dokie, guys. Let's do a little recap here. What we got going on here is we installed the Sirius radio. You remember me telling you I was going to put these modules here in the glove box. Let's see what we got here. Bingo. We got our SCC1, our SIR-TOY1 or SIR-TOY1. SIR-TOY1 is mounted a little bit lower than SCC1 because remember you got a data cable going into the bottom of SCC1 and you got a data cable going to the top of a toy SIR-TOY1. So to avoid conflict with the glove box as it opens and closes, you want to make sure you mount those kind of opposite. So you'll notice that all the wires are running through the bottom of the glove box. That's because there's already a factory hole at the bottom of the glove box where you could run the two wires, the antenna wire and this wire here through up the bottom. So once that's set up, you'll see that you have your satellite. It's going to start doing updates, etc. once you mount the antenna. And let me show you how I did the antenna here. I'm sorry I didn't do a walkthrough on the antenna, but it's pretty self-explanatory once I show you how I did it here. No, I didn't mount it in the back of the car. That's a lot of extra routing that you don't need to do. There it is. It's a magnetic antenna. Just kind of sits on top. Doesn't really move around a lot. I've had mine on my ridge line forever and it hasn't budged. So what I did was I took the wire. I started from here. I started at the very extent of where my antenna is going to be, and I started to route it downward. And if I can get it in the frame here, you can kind of see how it's done. It's kind of coming into the gasket, and then I run it behind that window gasket all the way down. So it makes for a nice clean install. You can't see the wire anywhere. The only place that I have to still work on is once you run it down the window here, coming down, bingo. There's a change in body panels, and right here I was able to get my wire underneath here gently with a rubberized tip screwdriver so you don't cut this wire. But here I still have to fish it underneath, and then that will make for a seamless install there. I come down. Instead of going down this lower window this way, because this gasket's tighter, go up the top of this small window here. So follow it all the way up. You see you cannot see the wire. Follow it all the way up, and it's going to terminate here. Now when we open the door, you'll see the wire that does not get pinched. No matter, I don't care what anybody says, this does not get pinched. I've had mine on my ridgeline now since 2009. It's never had a problem. So underneath here, you pull this gasket loose, and as you can see I still have to clean this up here, but you pull this gasket loose and you just route your wire all the way down the door jamb rubber, and then you're going to get to a seam here. Once you get to this seam, you run it behind the dash, and with this panel off, of course, you can route your wire underneath and up through your glove box, and it pops up down there. So that makes a nice clean installation of a Sirius satellite radio in the Toyota Prius, and I hope this helps a few people. I'm sorry if my commentary isn't the best sometimes or my camera work, but if I had a third hand, we could fix that. So, in recap, take your time. That's number one. Make sure you do this when you don't have a lot to do that day. Number two, make sure you protect all your plastics so you don't end up with scratched plastics when you're done. And three, make sure you test it like I showed you before and to make sure everything works good. So if there's anything else you guys need or you have any questions about the install, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to help you guys out. We'll see you later.